So the sovereign can't make excuses. Let me go down to the next page. Sixth International Conference of American States. The Conference of American States was formed in 1892. This was the sixth International Conference of American States. When I first saw this, I thought it was very interesting language, because I thought I knew that the American states to be something like South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia. This says it's an international conference. Not only that, it's not the first one they had, it's the sixth one, and it was held in Havana, Cuba in 1928. This is right out of international law. This is right out of the treaties. It's right out of the rights and duties of nations. It's right out of the law of nations. And it says every nation has a right to exist, nation being a state. You know, like we come together, we become a state. That's our status, our status. We have a right to protect and conserve our existence, but this right neither implies the right nor justifies the act of the state to protect itself or to conserve its existence by the commission of unlawful acts against an innocent or unoffending state. So you got to come out peacefully. Israel did nothing against Egypt. They did nothing. They did nothing against Babylon. When Israel split itself, they did not go to war. The 10 tribes just simply left. They had a disagreement over taxation. Jeroboam went to Rehoboam. Here again we're going into history, because this is how all of this applies. This is how the international community applies it. They're doing it right. Trust me, they're doing it right. When Jeroboam went to Rehoboam, he said, your daddy has been taxing us heavily, and we would really appreciate it if you would stop it now that he's dead. Which, you know, meaning that Rehoboam was going to be taking over for Solomon. And Rehoboam said, well, if they think it was bad under Daddy, then watch what Rehoboam's going to do. And Jeroboam said, well, we thought that you would say that, so guess what we're going to do? We're leaving. No more taxes from us. We won't come down here and participate in your feast. We'll have them up here where we are. Now the point is that they didn't actually physically leave the land. They stayed right where they were. They just didn't have anything else to do with the other 3 tribes anymore. That's how the 10 tribes exercised their right of self-determination to leave the other state in peace and say, you know what, we have a disagreement. The disagreement's wholesome. We don't like the tort, so therefore we're leaving. We'll form our own state. We'll do our own thing. Every nation has a right to independence in the sense that it is a right to pursuit of happiness, as it is free to develop itself without external interference or control from other states, provided that in doing so it does not interfere with the rights of other states. Every nation is in law and before law equal with every other nation, belonging to the society of nations, and all nations have a right to claim, and according to the Declaration of Independence of the United States, to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the law of nature and nature's God entitle them. So they're already agreeing that we have this entitlement. As a matter of fact, there's plenty of other things that agree with that, you know. Some people believe they were put here to be kings and priests. Well, then be one. That's what this says. Form your own state, form your own country, come together with people of like mind, men of goodwill, organize, and run a society the way you want to run it. And if you don't trample all over us, we'll actually honor you. The point here, Ray, is, and this is what the Father taught me, there is a way to be in the world and not of the world. There's a way to come out of her, my people, that, in my opinion, the Creator actually had them leave it in the international law, and they respect it actually more than the people that you and I would call the people that we've known for years. They believe it and respect it more than those people do, because those people are trying to get these other nations, these other societies to change their declarations and change their constitutions and change the way they run things, and that's a dishonor because they're not signatory to the contract. Well, if you look at Article 6 here on this same page, they're doing it under international law, because it says right here that international law is at one time and the same, both national and international. It's national in the sense that it is the law of the land, and that's what it says in the Constitution. It says all international treaties shall be supreme law of the land. This is running on international law among private parties, by the way. Private parties being the ones who are willing to form a compact, then they become a private party. Otherwise, they're just republicked inside someone else's public for their failure to stand up and form their own society and just want to go along to get along. You know, I agree with what you said, that sometimes it's done in ignorance. Sometimes it's not done in ignorance. Sometimes it's just downright arrogance and refusal to listen. I didn't have that problem because I was seeking the truth, and that's what this led me to. My comment over and over again is, if people prove me wrong, that this is wrong, I had this in my mind back 7, 8 years ago when I was looking at how am I literally going to come out of for my people, literally. Not some kind of spiritual, ethereal, let me sit around and think about it. There's a thing about fasting and praying, Ray, and this is where a lot of people don't get past. See, there's also a commandment that we take action. We have to take action. There was a period of time where, Moses kept praying and fasting, but he had a job to do, and the job was, okay, now that you're through praying and fasting, get these people out of here. It's time to move. See, we're commanded to move. I mean, we're commanded to act. Because without action, then you haven't done anything. You haven't proven a thing. It's like people in business talking about the law of attraction, like they can sit around and think about how they're going to be attractive. You don't get attractive by thinking about it. You get attractive by motion. Just like when you create an electromagnet, you wrap a wire around a piece of metal. You shove energy through that, and it's the energy in motion that causes the attraction. So the only way to be attractive is to move. We were talking earlier about people don't have the funds to do this or do that. Well, then why are they working for other people? Why don't they go in business? Why don't they create? Why don't they move? Look at the movie Forrest Gump. I wrote about this years ago. I have it on my website. Forrest Gump, he was constant motion, but because he only focused on one thing at a time, he was successful at everything he did. Not because he thought about anything, he was incapable of doing that. So the same thing is true here. We read and study so we can learn and contemplate what's written. But in understanding international law, this is being done in the law of nations. This is how you come out. And they're saying everyone's got a right to do it when they form the state. If you'll see the next page in Appendix 6, the convention that they held was held for private international law. These are the American states, by the way: Peru, Uruguay, Panama. Anyway, so these were the 9 articles that they passed of private international law. This was what the convention was all about. I'm not going to go through it, but it does say in Article 6 that if a nation was a non-contracting state, meaning they didn't show up at the meeting, I'll just read it. Non-contracting states are international juristic persons desiring to adhere to this convention. What does that mean? Desiring to sign on to the treaty, they can deposit in the Office of Pan-American Union the instrument of adherence. The Secretary General has a duty to contact all the contracting states who are signatory at these conventions, at these treaties. And after 6 months, if there is no disagreement, it says in here, shall reciprocally be bound by the convention 30 days after the adherence. So if there's no disagreement within the 6 months, and if none of the other states have any problem with it, then they're in. This goes back to silent acquiescence again, because that adherence document becomes the evidence of service and process that you are party to. Now, if a state was not there, or they did not even exist at the time, because there's plenty of nations that didn't exist at this time. This was in 1928. If they wanted to be a party to these treaties and agreements, they have to deposit with the OAS now, the Organization of American States. Go down to the next page. You're going to see that they talked about the private international law and the code of private international law. This is how they pass these private international laws and then take these codes of private international law and put it into all their disparate jurisdiction under things like the U.S. Code. And this is how they're going to treat the republics. I mean, the public that are in their republics. Key in on the language, foreigners belonging to. That means people belong to something, as in property. Foreigners belonging to any of the contracting states enjoy in the territory of the others the same civil rights as are granted to nationals. So this is not a political right. These are people that belong to a state. But here's the real key. All of these principles are under this doctrine, under Article 3, Section 2, these civil rights and enjoyments of identical individual guarantees are binding alike on all persons residing in the territory, whether or not they are nationals, and these rules are termed to be territorial, local, or of an international public order. What they're saying is we're going to maintain an international public order. Article 4 says the same thing. Constitutional precepts are of an international public order. They are not of just a national public order. They're international in scope. I won't go into more of that because the international public order is what we call it now, the IPO, International Public Order. And coming out through the Dominion the way I did with my ambassadorial appointment and with the Sovereign Earth Alliance that Arthur has set up, where we actually have declarations that I can believe in and pledge to support,